Hey, what's up, Keystone students? I'm Andrew from South Jersey, and today I was going to go through a little summary of what we've been talking about all fall, which is loving God and loving others and how that overflows in our lives and how that works. So I'm going to start in Matthew chapter 5, and this is Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. He goes through a certain number of sins, and he gives us a new way to think about them. It's really interesting because it's so applicable today. He starts with anger. And he says, you've heard that it was said, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment, right? In the Ten Commandments, it says, do not murder. So he goes into verse 22 and says, but I say to you that everyone who's angry with his brother, and whoever insults his brother, will be liable to judgment. And what Jesus is saying is that if you have hatred in your heart towards somebody, anybody, that's equal to murder. And that's a pretty bold thing to say, and it's crazy for us to think about, but he's saying they kind of have the same spirit. So don't hate people. Don't hate people. He goes into this to verse 33. He talks about oaths. And towards the end, he says, let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. So mean what you say. Don't make promises and then not keep them. Don't be hypocritical. He goes into talking about retaliation. He acknowledges the world's view on it. In verse 38, he says, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now that can be pretty old-fashioned sounding. You might not have heard that phrase before, but the world today definitely follows that. An eye for an eye. If somebody hurts you, hurt them back, and hurt them back worse. Or if somebody pushes you or takes something, take back from them. But then Jesus flips it. In verse 39, he says, but I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. So Jesus is saying, don't seek revenge. If somebody hurts you, don't just try to hurt him back even worse. And he takes it even a step further in verse 43. And the section of these verses is called Love Your Enemies. And he says, you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. It sounds very prevalent, especially in 2020, right? Verse 44, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. Again, is obviously very applicable, but that's very radical too. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Pray for those who hurt you. Again, there's so much. Just think about that for a second. It kind of blows your mind when God takes something and just flips it on its head. And Jesus doesn't give these as a checklist. He doesn't tell us all this so we can be like, anger, okay, that's not too bad. Okay, that's not too bad. He doesn't tell you to do that, and he doesn't tell you to also take it the other way, which is just not really care. I'm angry, but that's all right. He wants to take these things very seriously, and he took them so seriously that he sent Jesus to the cross to pay for them, right? Because we were all sinful. So if you get down to the practicality of it, if you want like a kind of a real world way to think about it, I want you to think about that now. Think of an example of a time someone really hurt you. But then I want you to think about the answer to this, which is the gospel. When you think about how much God forgave you of, all the sins in your life, right? But even on top of that, the gospel says that we're so sinful, we're basically saying to God, nah, forget you. I want to be my own God. And we walked our own way. And we were like, I don't really want to listen to God. I want to do my own thing. And that is the most extreme hurtful thing to God. But if he can forgive us of that, then we should be able to forgive others of little things or even bigger things. So just think about that. Keep that in your mind. If you have extreme anger, hatred, revenge, whatever it is, even if it's a little bit towards somebody, think about how much God forgave you of. Think about that, and let his love for you overflow out into how you love other people. I want to leave you on this. You're not supposed to just go and try to do that checklist I was talking about, but God gave himself to you, right? If you follow him, he's with you all the time, and he works in you. And he also gave us community. He gave us accountability. So community, people around us who care about us, and who point out things and who pick us up when we fall. So just think about those things, and don't be so extremely hard on yourself, and don't hurt yourself by putting so many expectations. But do take sin seriously and ask God for help. So many times Jesus talks about repenting of our sin, and that's what he asks us to do, because there's power in that. There's not power in making any type of excuse or justifying your sin, but there is power in repenting. So that's what I got for you, and have an awesome day.